Okay, let's dive into this. Welcome to the explainer. If you're learning English, or heck, even if you teach it, you absolutely know the universal frustration we all face. English prepositions. I'm talking about those tiny, seemingly insignificant little words that establish relationships between people, places, and things. English boasts over 100 prepositions, and let's be real, mastering them can sometimes feel like trying to catch water with your bare hands. But today, we are going to demystify them. We're going to completely reframe how you look at these tricky little words by thinking of them not as random, annoying grammar rules, but as magnets of meaning. So, let me ask you a question, and I want you to really think about it. Do you know the fundamental difference in how words like laugh at and break down function in a sentence? This right here highlights a massive trap for language learners, the danger of confusing literal meanings with idiomatic ones. Getting this wrong is literally the difference between clearly communicating your thoughts and leaving your listener completely puzzled. And really, that's the core mystery we're unraveling today. To help us on this mission, say hello to our friendly grammar bot assistant. Think of this bot as your personal analytical guide through the maze of English grammar. We are going to decode these frustrating rules together, step by step. By the end of our time today, you're going to have the analytical tools you need to not just sound way more natural, but to actually score major points on rigorous exams like the Cambridge B2 First and C1 Advanced. So here is our roadmap for today. We'll start with the preposition problem, explore why dependent prepositions matter, and look at nouns, verbs, and adjectives. Then, we'll compare phrasal versus prepositional verbs, cover the rules of separation, and finish up with some solid strategies for mastery. All right, Section 1, the preposition problem. Your struggle is incredibly valid. With over 100 prepositions in the English language, choosing the wrong one is actually one of the most frequent mistakes made by learners. And why does this happen? Well, most of the time, it comes down to native language interference. In your native language, a preposition might not translate directly, it might use a totally different word, or it might not even exist at all for that specific phrase. And this brilliantly illustrates exactly what I mean. Saying depend of instead of depend on is just a tiny one-word mix-up, right? But it immediately causes confusion for the listener. To a native speaker, depend on is a deeply ingrained conventional pattern. When you say depend of, it breaks that pattern, and suddenly the clarity of your message just drops. It's not just about sounding fancy, it's about making sure your actual meaning is received loud and clear. Which brings us to Section 2, why dependent prepositions matter. Getting these tiny words right isn't just some vanity metric so you can sound more natural. It is fundamentally about avoiding complete and sometimes really awkward misunderstandings. For example, if you say you laugh at someone, you're mocking them, you're being mean. But if you laugh about a situation, you simply find it funny. One single word changes the entire emotional tone of your sentence, and honestly, it saves you from accidentally insulting your friends. So, what exactly are they? A dependent preposition is a preposition that usually accompanies specific verbs, adjectives, or nouns to attach an object. Now, I want you to visualize them as magnets. These prepositions are strong grammatical magnets that just have to stick to specific words to make the sentence hold together. There isn't always a logical reason why a specific magnet sticks to a specific word. It's honestly just the way the language has evolved. Now, if your goal is to pass a major English exam, these magnets are everything. They are absolutely crucial for Cambridge B2 First and C1 Advanced exams. You'll see them highly tested in Use of English Part 2. That's the open-close task, where you have to fill in a blank with just one word. And what better word for Cambridge to test than a dependent preposition? Plus, in Part 4, Keyword Transformations, if you forget the preposition or just use the wrong one, you easily lose a point. Why are they so hard to learn, though? Because they're purely functional. They have almost no inherent meaning by themselves, so your brain just naturally skips right over them when you're reading or listening. Moving on to Section 3, nouns, verbs, and adjectives. So, how do we organize all this chaos? We really need to see how different parts of speech, specifically nouns, verbs, and adjectives, attract different prepositions. By grouping them, we can start to spot some very subtle but super helpful patterns. Let's move to and see how this builds using some great examples straight from a 30-day learning challenge. Check out how they pair up. For nouns, you have a respect for something or you cause damage to it. For verbs, you might approve of or listen to. Adjectives have some really interesting tendencies. Adjectives describing skills often use the magnet at, like being good at English.
Meanwhile, adjectives related to feelings often use of or about, like being proud of or angry about a decision. Grouping them like this gives your brain a nice framework to hold on to.
Okay, section 4, phrasal versus prepositional verbs. We are now stepping into the most treacherous territory. We're going to interrogate the two main suspects causing all the confusion for English learners. They look almost identical on the surface. They both combine a verb with a tiny word, but they behave in completely different ways. First up, let's look at the prepositional verb. This is a combination of a verb and a preposition, where the meaning is similar to the original verb. These are straightforward. They're literal. When you look at a whiteboard, you are physically using your eyes to look. When you apologize for a mistake, you are making an apology. The core verb keeps its original meaning. But a phrasal verb, that is a completely different beast. It's a combination of a verb and a preposition. Actually, scratch that. It can be a preposition or an adverb. That creates a completely new idiomatic meaning. Let's take the dramatic example of passing away. This has absolutely nothing to do with physically passing a ball or passing a test. It means to die. If someone wants to give up smoking, they aren't physically handing a cigarette upward to the sky. They're quitting. The original verb loses its literal meaning entirely. So look at this stark contrast. A prepositional verb is literal. It keeps its core identity. A phrasal verb is idiomatic. It adopts an entirely new disguise. Understanding this fundamental difference is the absolute first step to knowing how to use them correctly in a sentence, which leads us directly to the grammar rules that govern them. Welcome to Section 5, the rules of separation. This is definitely the most technical part of our explainer today, but it is incredibly helpful. We're going to look at exactly how these two types of verbs behave structurally when you drop them into a sentence with an object. Now, what's really interesting here is how we can organize all this chaos into a simple checklist. Prepositional verbs. They are fiercely loyal. They are non-separable. You simply cannot split the verb and the preposition apart. And they always require an object immediately after the preposition. Phrasal verbs, they're much more flexible. They're mostly separable, meaning you can put an object right in the middle of them. Furthermore, some phrasal verbs don't even need an object at all, like when you say, the kid is growing up. Let's make this totally concrete with an example of separability. Because cut down is a phrasal verb, you have choices. You can say, the people requested to cut down the prices, or you can split the verb apart and say, cut the prices down. Both are perfectly fine. But because listen to is a prepositional verb, it cannot be separated. You say listening to music. You can never, ever say listening music to. The verb and its magnet must stay locked together. No exceptions. All right, Section 6, Strategies for Mastery. We've outlined the problem, the definitions, and the rules. Now, let's get into the solutions. How do we actually conquer these grammatical roadblocks and make sure we don't just freeze up during a conversation or an exam? So, the crucial point is this. Strategy number 1 is to completely change how you study. Do not learn a verb and then try to remember its preposition later. Treat the verb and its dependent preposition as one single, unbreakable lexical item. When you learn depend, you must learn depend on, as if it's one single word. Strategy 2, strict error correction. If you make a mistake, correct it immediately so the bad habit doesn't set in. And strategy 3, master gap fill exercises. Yes, I know they can feel a bit repetitive, but doing them over and over forces your brain to actively notice these functional words instead of just skipping over them. Rinse and repeat. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a final thought to carry into your studies. The next time you encounter a new verb, adjective, or noun in English, are you going to treat it as just a solitary word, or will you look at it analytically, as a magnet, actively searching for its perfect prepositional match? Start seeing the language as a series of magnetic connections, and I promise you, you'll find that mastering English becomes a whole lot more logical and a whole lot more fun. Keep studying, keep noticing those patterns, and I'll see you next time.